So far, we've seen how we can use a combination of our healing tools in order to reduce or remove wrinkles. Yet what we haven't seen yet is a technique which is perhaps one of the best techniques for wrinkle reduction, which involves using the clone stamp tool and a particular blending mode. Well, that's exactly what I want to introduce you to here is this technique. Here in this movie, we'll look at how this technique works. Then in the next movie, we'll apply it to working on a few images, including this one here. Yet before we get to the photographs, I want to turn on the visibility of these layers right here. These are some demo layers which I've created. And I've created these so that we can really understand how this technique works, because if we understand how it works, it can help us achieve better results. Now here in this demo little folder, we have one layer which has a gray rectangle below, and above we have a gradient. And this gray is right about here in the middle gray area. And often what we do is when we use the clone stamp tools, we create a new layer and we work on a layer above, right? We grab our clone stamp tool, we have a particular brush that we're going to use, and we also have align turned on and sample all layers. Great. Then we can go down here and Option or Alt click to set our source area, and I'm going to bring the gray below to the area above. Now when I bring that above, what we can see is it's identical to what's below. If I just click and move it down there, can you see how it's just the same? It looks different because over here it's surrounded by black and over here it's surrounded by white. Yet it's just a one-to-one cloning just as it is, bringing something from a lower area to an upper area or another part of the image. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, I'm talking about this because we can actually change how the clone stamp tool works. If you click on the icon for the clone stamp tool, you'll notice you have various blending modes. Click on the blending mode pull-down menu. And one of the things that you may know is you have some blending modes which allow you to create a darkening effect or lightening or contrast. And so let's say we choose darken. Well, if we choose darken and do the same thing as before, Option or Alt click on the gray below, bring that above and click and paint it over, what we'll see is it's still the same. It's as if it doesn't even have a blending mode. Well, the reason is because we're working on a blank layer. If we want to use a blending mode, what we need to do is to duplicate the layer. Here I'll duplicate it. Work on a pixel-based layer like this one here. Now I'll do the same exact thing before, but watch what happens. Here I'm painting back and forth over the image. But for some reason, it's only affecting the right side over here. Well, why is that? What's going on? Well, what the darken blending mode does is it says, hey, sample an area, and when you sample that area, if there's any area that's brighter than the area that we sampled, why don't you darken it? And so here it's darkening this area because these pixels over here, they're brighter than this area below. All right, well, that's how darken works. What about another one, which is lighten? Lighten is actually the one that we'll use for wrinkles, because as you can imagine, what we could do is Option or Alt click on an area below the wrinkle or near the wrinkle that isn't dark, move the cursor over the wrinkle, and then click and paint. And take a look at what happens. I'm painting back and forth over this whole area. It doesn't affect anything else except for the area which is darker, except for the problem, except for the wrinkle. So what we can do is we can use this technique of using a lighten blending mode in order to clone brightness into that wrinkle area, which in turn will help us to remove it. All right, well, that's how the technique works. What we need to do next, of course, is see how we can apply this to a few different photographs, and let's do that in the next movie.